frustrating.
All right, well, for some reason everyone got quiet. Around here, that's not the usual thing. So, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for coming. Obviously, thank all the committee members for coming. Today is very much about understanding the task before us, really outlining the calendar, talking about roles, getting an introduction to the basic program. As is obvious from this room, I want to cover that's an exit, that's an exit. There is a bathroom to your right as you go out of here. We are, one of the things that we will do as we go through the meeting is consider some rules for public comment. Every one of our meetings will have a portion of public comment at the end. The idea behind that comment, of course, is that it's about general comments to the committee, separate from the engagement strategy that we'll talk about as item number 6 on the agenda. We're going to be talking about how we're going to be out in the community, sharing ideas, accepting ideas, and incorporating those into our work. This meeting is really mostly about the committee, getting its organizational things together, understanding what their role is. And so I want to welcome everyone. The nice thing is, of course, that we are also streaming this live, and it will all be available on our website or strictly straight onto YouTube if you'd like in just a few hours once it gets through processing. So all of our meetings will be available. As anything that happens here, we're going to stream, and we just thank everybody for participating. And my John Edling and I will be co-chairs of the committee. And John, if you'd like to say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, glad to see you all here. This is terrific. I had no idea that I'd end up doing this. I think I'm in this position because I've been on the Regional Economic Development Council since the outset, and I think the governor wanted somebody from the council. So here I am, but it's appropriate in many ways because the college has been integral part of this community since 1889. It's hard to imagine the city of Plattsburgh without the college. It's hard to imagine the college without the city of Plattsburgh. In fact, for 3 years, 80, 90 years ago, between 1929 and 1932, this was the college, this building. When the only building on the campus, the normal building, burned down in 1929, the city of Plattsburgh very graciously offered to let the college meet its classes here, which it did for 3 years. So we're not just part of the community, we were actually in this building. I don't know what the mayor did. You probably had to go somewhere else. Either that or you earned a degree from it.
That's right, that might be it.
As did this mayor, actually. So glad you're here, looking forward to this work. Unbelievable opportunity for the city of Plattsburgh. The whole region's on a roll, as you well know. If you read the paper, if you keep track of things, you know things are going really well here now. So let's just keep that going. Thanks.
So having done that, I'd like to first be sure that everyone understands who the committee members are. And maybe Christy, you'd like to start and introduce yourself so that everyone knows who you are and perhaps why you're here.
I'm Christy Kennedy. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Director of Tourism for the North Country Chamber of Commerce and the Adirondack Coast Visitors Bureau. My main focus every day is to how do we create and develop this destination to be attractive for visitors, which translates into a better quality of life for our residents as well. So that's really where my interest and my focus will be when it comes to this community.
I'm Jeremiah Ward. I'm Project Manager at North Country Food Co-op. We've got a pretty exciting set of renovations underway right now. And I'm here on this committee especially to see what the co-op can do and what I can do to help further the development of our local food system.
Hi, my name is Amy Bond. I run Finch Network, which is a local consulting group that does community and economic development work. And I think I'm here because I worked on some of the grants that helped get us here. And I'm particularly interested in the community engagement aspects and strategic planning aspects of this grant and how to engage particularly the low-income community in this process.
My name is Sam Porofsky. I'm from Ashley Furniture. I'm here because I want to see downtown grow, and I want to see how we can make everything better and make more businesses come to downtown so we have more shopping and opportunities downtown.
Good afternoon, I'm Keith Tayo. I'm Chief of Staff to the President at SUNY Plattsburgh. My role is to deal with community and government relations. I'm also in charge of the Startup New York program at the college, trying to get new businesses involved with the colleagues, so we're very much aware of what's happening and want to be involved in downtown revitalization efforts.
My name is Neil Fassett. I'm the broker-owner at Fassett Realty. Super excited to be involved with helping to facilitate this grant that Jim and his team have done such a great job of procuring. And I think I was asked to be a part of this committee because of my real estate background, and really looking forward to it. Thank you.
My name is Michael Cashman. I'm the Plattsburgh Town Supervisor, or Uptown Plattsburgh as we often refer to it. A strong downtown does very well for the uptown, and a strong uptown does well by us, downtown, so that cross-pollination is important to us. Just another little quick footnote is I also act as the chair for the Clinton County Supervisors Association, and I also serve on the Strategic Tourism Committee. So, the release that came out, a lot of us represent many, many other groups than just probably what we could put out in our verbal resume to all of you real quickly.
Victoria Dooley, I'm the economic developer from the Development Corporation. We own and operate 3 industrial parks in Clinton County, and in general partnership with other organizations such as the Chamber towards economic growth in our county. We have a real interest because we know that the downtown being vibrant is really important towards our continued regional economic growth.
Harry McManus, Chairman of the County Legislature. I'm here in addition to being asked to be here. To me, it's very important that the 3 governmental entities all work together. And we nicknamed these 2 the dynamic duo, but the county is very interested in what's going on, obviously, in the city of Plattsburgh, and we look forward to this whole process. Thank you.
Pass me?
Sure.
Lee Mundy. I have been in charge of raising the money and restoring the Strand Theater. We've always felt that it was the anchor project to restore downtown. And it has, you've seen a huge change in the last 5 years with the Strand Theater, Strand Center for the Arts Online. I've also been on many committees from the Regional Economic Quality of Life Committee, as well as a lot of the consultants for downtown restoration and revitalization. And I'm very interested in keeping downtown alive.
I'm Caitlin Imhoff. I'm with the Plattsburgh Downtown Business Association. My goal really is to involve the businesses, the local businesses in the area as much as possible, hoping that this project will not only bring new businesses but expand the ability of the businesses already down here. And in addition to that, I'm also a resident of downtown with a 2-year-old. So this project is really great for people like me with young families and my friends that have children. It's going to be a lot of personal opinions on it as well, in addition to helping with the business side of it.
My name is Rodney Brown. I'm the Director of Planning for Clinton County and the Deputy Administrator. And I've been with the county for 25 years and grew up in this community. And revitalization has been occurring in Plattsburgh for some time. In some measures, it costs a lot of money. It's very exciting to see that now we have an opportunity to really hear the ideas of the community and find out what would be best to carry this forward. We have a real opportunity, and I think everybody's really excited about it.
Thank you all. Obviously, the city of Plattsburgh will devote as much staff time as is necessary to make this project a success. Our chief staff person will be Paul D. Domenicus. Paul, say hello if you would, please. Anything else you'd like to say?
Happy to be here.
And I think most of the committee, I'm assuming that the committee all knows Paul, but he told me you can call him day or night. So, we have with us also today a number of representatives from Department of State and from a couple of consulting firms that are going to be working with us. I'd like them to all kind of introduce themselves and maybe just give obviously much of today's meeting will be about what their role is. So maybe you could just tell us who you all are.
Hi, Andy LaRusso with the Department of State. We're coordinating the DRI effort for the state, and we're really pleased to be working in Plattsburgh because we've been working in Plattsburgh for many years through the local waterfront revitalization program, and we're really happy with the selection of the city for the DRI process.
Barbara Kendall, also with Department of State, and we're happy to be here and supporting this effort.
Kate Goodman, I'm a partner with HRNA Advisors. We're an economic development and real estate consulting firm, and we're providing the technical support to the committee, to the state as you prepare your DRI recommendations. We really focus on public-private development. So how do you get plans built? How do you get things implemented? How do you finance them? What are the economics underlying it? And what muscle do you need to bring to get things done? And we'll be running the analysis and the larger consulting team on behalf of this assignment, but working very closely with partners with a long track record of work upstate, and they'll introduce themselves.
Working with Kate, I'm Brett Velazzi, principal at HRNA Advisors.
And I'm Connor Walden, senior analyst here at HRNA Advisors.
I'm Margaret Irwin from River Street Planning. We are working on the community engagement and community outreach process. We have a number of projects in Clinton County right now, and we were the team lead for Advantage Adirondacks, which is the economic development strategy for the Adirondack Park. So we're familiar with the North Country and economic issues that confront it.
I'm Jackie Hakes. I'm Director of Community Planning for MJ Engineering, and we have done a lot of work in the Adirondacks, a lot of work with the Department of State programs, worked with Margaret on the Advantage Adirondacks, and we're very excited to be a part of this team.
Well then, let's get to work. Let's start with HRNA, talking about the initiative, the overview of what brought us here today.
Terrific, thank you. There we go, I think I figured out how this works. Well, first off, again, thank you everybody for taking time out in the middle of your day. It's incredibly impressive how many people are clearly committed to the future of Plattsburgh's downtown, to dedicate your time and your energy, not just today, but in upcoming months. I'm hoping we're getting at least as much turnout, if not significantly more, not only at the committee meetings, but at the public engagement meetings that are going to be taking place going forward. Today is really about nuts and bolts. What are we going to be doing over the course of this process? I'm going to talk a little bit about the Downtown Revitalization Initiative to give you some parameters for the program, its intent. We're going to talk a little bit about our understanding of the project context based, frankly, on your application. And what we've heard so far are some of the key strategies that you've already identified as priorities for downtown, and very importantly, some priority projects that are already under discussion that we know that we're going to want to look at, among others. We're going to then talk about what is our work plan going forward? How are we going to be working with you? What can you expect over the next upcoming months, and what are we going to be expecting of you in our ongoing interactions? And then Margaret's going to spend some time talking about the community engagement strategy. How are we going to be getting people's ideas, getting people's input, and how are we going to be getting the word out so we get as many people participating as possible in this process? Finally, we want to open up the conversation to answer any questions on behalf of the committee and really get some additional ideas from you, even at this early stage. We'll have more material to react to at future meetings, but making sure that we've heard you correctly, at least insofar as the application has been articulated so far. And at the tail end of the conversation, we'll open this up to public comment as well. So first, the Downtown Revitalization Initiative. Governor Cuomo announced Plattsburgh as a recipient and going to be involved in this project in July. As he stated, the Downtown Revitalization Initiative seeks to transform communities ripe for development into vibrant neighborhoods where the next generation of New Yorkers will want to live, work, and raise a family. And the program is a partnership between the Department of State, Homes and Community Renewal, and Empire State Development. You will be likely meeting representatives of all of those agencies throughout the course of this effort. It's really helpful to have them at the table, and I'll get to the tail end of this. Why? It's not only because they've got a lot of local and regional knowledge, but they also have access to the range of state programs that can complement DRI funding to implement the projects that you identified. Plattsburgh was one of 10 communities identified to participate in the DRI program based on its physical features and ability to promote a livable, mixed-use downtown, recent and impending job growth, so we're on the upswing here, your ability to leverage additional public and private investment. The idea is that the DRI contribution is not going to be the sum total here. It is the beginning of funding the projects that you identified. and the commitment from local leaders, which is clear today. So what is DRI specifically? It provides $10 million for implementation of catalytic investments for downtown. But part of that is also producing the strategic initiatives that those catalytic investments support. So it's not just about identifying the projects that funding can go toward. It's about the strategies that are going to grow downtown overall in the long term and continue to attract public and private investment. We start with the knowledge that there's been a lot of planning work that has taken place over recent years and a lot of investment locally and by the state and by private investors as well. And so there's a very strong basis of information and past commitments to build on. HRNA and the consulting team will revisit the assessment of existing assets and opportunities that exist here and provide the technical support to the local planning committee as you identify what is your downtown investment strategy to drive growth over the longer term, and what priority projects and associated very clear implementation plans should the DRI be focusing on supporting. Based on that assessment, $10 million will be available to support the recommendations that come out of this planning effort. That $10 million is going to support priority projects. It's also there to leverage additional public and private resources. So we're anticipating that there's going to be a range of strategies, a range of projects that are identified over the course of this that are probably much greater than $10 million in total. This is about how do you seed those efforts so that you can then attract additional resources at Plattsburgh. It only took me 3 strikes. That's improving here. So we as the consulting team are working on behalf of the local planning committee, the 18 members that are here today, chaired by Mr. Etling and Mayor Kalman, and are already very appreciative of Paul's efforts to sort of get this organized and handle the day-to-day logistics of the LPC. And working closely with the Department of State. You met Andy, you met Barbara, representatives from Homes and Community Renewal, the Empire State Development, Department of Labor, and the Governor's Office of Regional Affairs. So we're here in a supporting and technical role. Who is the rest of the consulting team? Again, I'm Kate Calignon with HRNA Advisors. We are the economic development and real estate arm of the team, and we'll also be providing the project management. Brett Colazzi will be our project director, and then Connor Muldoon will be our day-to-day project manager. Working very closely with Jackie Hakes of MJ Engineering, providing planning and engineering support. Margaret will be speaking shortly about the community engagement plan that River Street will be working with us to implement. And you'll also be meeting other representatives of the consultant team in subsequent meetings. Bill Penworthy from Cooper Robertson will be providing architectural expertise as necessary, and Barbara Wilkes from W Landscape Design. And the reason we put together this team is the combination of national experience, regional experience, and frankly a focus on implementation. How do you get things done? You've done a lot of plans. We want to make sure that we're giving you the resources and the capacity you need to get those implemented. HRNA has played this role in addition to projects around the country. We led teams, and I know Margaret worked on teams as well under the New York Rising resiliency planning efforts that took place around the state, working with communities and local planning committees to formulate processes, to formulate plans and projects for state and federal funding that would enhance community resiliency. We've also done neighborhood, downtown plans, waterfront plans, HRNA working in the city of North Adams most recently, MJ, the city of Troy's Riverfront Park, Margaret working in the city of Schenectady on their comprehensive plan and downtown strategy. We're happy to talk about any or all of these at a later point, but it gives you a little bit of sense of the flavor of the kind of work that we do. And now I'll hand it over to Connor. We'll talk a little bit about our understanding of some of the priority strategies and projects that you've already identified in your application.
Great, thank you very much. As Kate mentioned, this is just the kickoff to a months-long engagement, so we're very excited to be here and to get to know a deep level of the community. We're showing some statistics here that are not new to you, but are just at a glance some things that rise to the top, and we're very excited to kind of dig into these as well. Plattsburgh is entering the DRI process at a position of strength. The population has been growing over the past 10 years, and it's grown 6% since 2000. There's a core population of students here, nearly 6,000 students at SUNY Plattsburgh, representing a tremendous opportunity for spending and living and recreation, all sorts of wonderful things. 2/3 of the visitors to Plattsburgh come from out of state, which is an incredibly important aspect when we're looking from an economic development, with money coming into the community. Looking at jobs, there's a core population of almost 10,000 workers in the downtown area in the city. Unemployment is lower than statewide. And there's not only a thriving transportation and manufacturing center with some large employers who are growing, there's also a core constellation of almost 70 businesses in the downtown. And so the state and the city have provided our planning team over 36 plans and studies that have occurred over the past 10 or 15 years or so, both at a city-specific level and at the region, looking at the town and the county. We've highlighted a few here to show that both looking at a broad array of large parcels through a brownfield opportunity study that looked at 22 sites that contained more than 1,200 acres that was completed about 6 years ago. Even more recently, there are 2 studies that were just completed at the beginning of this year. The local waterfront revitalization program that Andy mentioned at the beginning of this meeting today. And then also looking at site-specific plans at the City Beach and Creek Center, and ongoing plans at the Durkee Street lot. And so not only are these plans talking about city-specific issues, we're looking at how Plattsburgh really operates as the hub of the Adirondack Coast and the hub of the region. Back here. There we go. And so, as Kate mentioned, this process will be looking at identifying strategies and projects and how will those work towards the goals for downtown, the visions, the goals and objectives for downtown, what we see as the future of Plattsburgh. And so some of these strategies that initially started to rise to the top and were identified in the application to the DRI process. Looking at how do we develop underused sites that are centrally located, the Durkee Street lot, the Dock Street lot, and others that will be identified throughout this process. How do we support cultural assets and establish a downtown arts corridor building off of the Strand Theater? Looking at activating the waterfront with recreational uses through part of the waterfront revitalization program, celebrating natural resources through access to trails and beaches, strengthening existing clusters of economic growth, and how do we also protect and raise awareness of the historic downtown that is a key asset to the city of Plattsburgh. So these strategies will help us to identify projects, priority projects that we'll be looking at in an in-depth perspective through this process with our team of sub-consultants. Some of those projects that were identified in the application: Durkee Street lot, Dock Street landing, Arts Corridor, looking at the slightly outside of the downtown area, the Civic Center, the beach, and the Saranac River. And so as we these are the questions that we're going to ask the planning committee here and people in the room to be thinking about as we work through our presentation. We'll be coming back to these discussions towards the end of our conversation. But to keep in mind as we work through our presentation and our work plan, are there additional strategies besides the few that we mentioned that we should be thinking about as we begin this process? Are there additional priority projects that we should also be aware of? What are the physical opportunities and challenges in terms of connectivity, brownfields, site? What sort of preparations to individual priority real estate parcels could we be looking at? And streetscapes and open space and waterfront recreation as well. What are the market opportunities and challenges to evolving downtown, to seeing that vision forward? How will these impact regional job growth? How will they impact job growth in the city? What sort of tourism opportunities are there going forward? How can we build off that strength that we already currently have? How can we interact better with Plattsburgh students and staff and get them throughout the downtown and activating the downtown corridor? And what sort of market demand and spending potential is there for these projects? And as a big part of this process, what is the vision, what is the goal, what are we working towards throughout this process, both in a 10-year period and a 30-year period? So I'm going to bring up Brett, who's going to work through how we actually will get through these steps as part of this process.
Okay, a bit about process. Hold this tracking wheel will help you.
They lied.
It's such a pretty picture.
There you go. This is the first test.
The mayor's standing.
Apparently it's something to do with the atmosphere, yeah.
So this is, the DRI process is intended to be fast-paced and geared toward developing an implementation plan. We've broken out the work plan and strategy for this DRI planning process into 4 phases, which I'll walk through one by one. But the overview is that there's some time we need to take now to understand from your past planning work what foundation we're building upon, and then also speak with you individually about the priorities and some of the plans that you have for the downtown. And that we'll aim to do over the next few weeks. We get to get smart on this as quickly as we can. And then understand what gaps exist that we need to fill in the short term among our technical team to begin to really understand what are the strategies, what are the right implementation plans for specific projects, and move forward. But the bulk of our time, really the fall period, we'll be spending on the implementation strategy, on figuring out for specific projects what will it take to get shovels in the ground, how can these funds be leveraged to have the greatest impact, and what are the next steps when this process is over that empower you to go out and actually get the new projects moving, and wrapping that up in a plan. In a minute, Marco will come up and explain throughout this process. This work plan and the steps I'm about to show you explain when we meet as local planning committee and the consultant team and some of the reports that we'll issue. There's a parallel process where the public will be engaged and have opportunities to comment throughout this entire process as well. So step by step. Phase 1 is really about this kickoff. We'll, after this meeting, be taking a site tour, start to see some of these sites with some of you and understand some of your vision, reviewing some of the reports that have been done, and then also developing a community engagement strategy, which Margaret will walk through, so that we make sure we're hearing from everyone in the community about what the priorities are for this project, and formalizing that plan in a document that should be completed by the end of this month. In phase 2. Phase 2 is about existing conditions and our opportunities. And here, we have a team of architects, landscape architects, planners, engineers, and ourselves as real estate economic development specialists to fill in some of the gaps that may not have been completed to understand exactly what your projects need to move forward, what some of the strategies should be. We know there's a market study underway and what are the next pieces that need to be done to really understand what's feasible at that site, how to move that forward, and that's some of the work we can be doing over the next month. The intention is that when we come back to you next, probably for the end of October, we're looking at dates, we can begin to have a discussion about what are your visions, what are your goals for this project, and solidify those, but also begin to identify the preliminary strategies that we think we want to focus on over the next few months. And preliminarily, which types of projects might fit into which of those strategies. And then finally, in the November through January phase, looking at the implementation piece. This is where we do a deeper dive into financial analysis and to costing analysis, to some of the design work and the renderings and the mapping to understand what we've done at different sites, or what kind of design strategies might be effective in things like streetscapes and things like open space as we start projecting our projects. And here, there are 2 sessions we intend to host with you. One is on the earlier side, once we've started to identify some of those projects, having a working session to start going through some of the bigger issues and make sure we're working on the right analytical pieces to drive them forward. And then finally come back once we have priority project plans to walk through the implementation strategy. When we say implementation strategy, we mean actual designs, not construction drawings to the point where you can take them out to bid, but designs where we know we have a feasible project, and where we have a governance structure so that we know how you would dispose of a site and take it forward. And we have a phasing strategy so we can explain exactly how that would happen. As well as a funding strategy to understand what other funds are available to use in implementation. And that draft report will come together toward the end of January, the meeting beforehand that we can act on. And then finally, the DRI process is all culminates with the final DRI strategic investment plan. And in this plan, throughout this process, we'll have some projects that we identify as these are the priority projects which we'll focus on. These are the areas where the $10 million will be invested, and that'll be the priority of that plan. But as you mentioned earlier, this is about longer-term strategies as well. And in this final DRI plan, the idea is to lay out other potential projects that can be integrated into the future plan as we go forward and seek other funds from other sources. And with that, I think it is Margaret.
First miracle of this process will be that I can get slides forward.
If you want to just call them out, I can advance from here.
Might work better. The important thing to note about the community engagement strategy that I'm going to talk through is just a starting point. And you may say to us, this would work better. This is a better approach. Add this as an outreach idea. And we rely on you to do that. The real brilliance of how things work in the community are not based on our experience somewhere else. They're based on your experience right here. So a starting point. See, he's not even looking at me, so this is... So the major components of this are obviously meetings with you and the governance structure and the buck stopping somewhere and making decisions that move the project along. Public meetings, a whole different kind of format. We're thinking about 3 of those. We'll talk about that. It's a really kind of short, condensed time frame. Interviews and focus groups are probably going to be a critical part of this, since we do need to move quickly. Who are the key stakeholders? And some of those meetings will be done at the beginning, and some of them will be done a little later when you have some sense of what the priorities are, because that may bring a new set of stakeholders or new issues that need to be dealt with folks who may live or operate businesses downtown today. A presentation to the city council, critical to keep that connection, and and the county and the town, the legislative information flowing, because in the end, you are the folks who are going to have to be responsible for seeing that these move forward. And so we need to keep that connection tight. Ongoing coordination with the state agencies, as was described earlier, a number of them, and then depending upon the projects, maybe more, based upon the kinds of resources you need, permitting you might need, projects that you've identified. And finally, a public presentation of the final DRI plan. Part information, part motivation, part sales, but largely building momentum in a very short period of time for moving this process forward and doing more than thinking about having $10 million, but having 5 times $10 million or 10 times $10 million in terms of the potential for leverage off of this state investment. So the timeline for that is that we will have a community engagement plan. There's a draft of it that we're working through, and based upon today's conversation, we'll finalize. We'll get that out to the state agencies and to you for feedback and comment. We'll talk about it next time. We'll nail it, and we'll have to start moving ahead on some things, as we go through that process. We would like to have a meeting by the end of October to talk about key existing conditions and opportunities, just making sure that everyone who is interested is starting from the same playing field about knowledge for what's happening in the downtown. And this is particularly important, as Amy mentioned, in bringing stakeholders to the table who might not normally participate. We need to catch them up to all of you who are key investors and key actors to make sure that you're moving forward as an integrated community. The next meeting will probably be sometime at the end of November, and that's when we really are starting to talk about the strategy and the priority projects and the approach to implementation to make sure that that is something that people endorse. And finally is to actually share the community investment plan. So, the late October meeting. What will we have at that point? We'll have findings from the downtown profile, which is the information collecting. We'll have a sense of emerging vision, goals, and objectives, sort of the big picture. And part of that is to test some of that. Those ideas, to bring forward the words and phrases and the values that people hold about downtown and what's going to keep them motivated and what are you going to use as a touchstone to go back and evaluate which projects you should move forward. Preliminary list of strategies and potential projects. And there are lots of ways to do this, but often the first meeting includes talking to people about things, either in a large group or in small groups, to make sure the information is conveyed. Discussion of those, sometimes a brainstorming, whole variety of different ways that we can pull that together for a first full community meeting. And there are a number of ways to do outreach for that. And again, you'll help us to fine-tune this to make sure that it flows the way information flows in Plattsburgh. So you have a very good website about the DRI, pages on your city website already. My own personal opinion is there's no need to recreate that, but there will be a state website that shares information about all of the DRI projects as they go forward, so that's another opportunity, not only to keep track of what you're doing, but to get a glimpse into what some of your colleague communities, both upstate and downstate, are choosing to do with their resources. This is sort of traditional media still is important, so save the date, mailings, cards, as well as email, and then some of the higher tech uses, including potentially news sources like a site called Text Design, which actually lets particularly younger people, like your almost 6,000 students and your own students, feed in information in real time continually. So there's all kinds of ways to construct that. Second, the late November, and then that's when we will have, after consulting with you, a strategy outline. How do we take all of that information we talked about first and funnel it into implementable strategies and projects? So each one of these is pulling it down, and then at the end, it's floating it back out to get people excited. So expanding the recommendations for projects and actions. And our thought about this is maybe we would try something different. So maybe that's more of an open house format. At that point, some graphics will start to be emerging, some mapping, but also potentially conceptual illustrations of what these projects will look like. And doing open houses with a series of stations is a little less formal. There are people who don't like to stand up in a big meeting and voice a concern, and then there are people who really love to stand up in a big meeting. So the open house sort of eats at both of those issues. But it's also a way for the committee to informally talk to people about their ideas and their questions. And undoubtedly, this is where someone points at something and says, did you ever think about turning that this way? And you say, well, I didn't see that, and that's a really good idea. So that's really where everything gets refined. And there's the same core tools, but at this point we have graphics, so maybe there's a brochure, there's certainly graphics on a website, there's flyers and posters that are a little more evocative than the first images. So we want to keep making people aware of how the project's moving forward, even if they choose not to come to the event itself. And then the final presentation. So that's where we bring the final plan and the implementation strategy, most importantly. Lots of plans like this get developed. Hey, you've got lots of plans like this that have gotten developed. And people want to know, so what this time? How's it actually going to go forward? Can I believe that it's going to get implemented? Who are the people who are going to make it happen? Where's the money coming from? Because we don't really want it to come out of our own pocket. So how do we move? How is this really going to move forward? And our job is to show them how it can move forward. And so the outreach there, core tools discussed earlier, that's probably a really strong social media push, as well as more graphic and presentation. We want people to be tempted and interested to come to this. And so that's where the burden is really on us to develop materials and sites and content that's exciting and motivating and encouraging. So again, a starting point for you to think about in terms of the approach, and we would love to hear from you, either formally or informally, about what you think is uniquely the way to engage people in your city. Thank you.
So that's really largely it for the portion of this where we are talking at you, and we hope to minimize that going forward. Connor had started to introduce a series of questions for you that I think we would like to engage in before the end of this conversation. But before we even get to that, I wanted to see if the committee had questions about the process, what we're going to be doing together going forward, and also if you had any reactions or thoughts about the engagement process as Margaret just described it.
The dates, are you going to try to set the dates for the meetings and the public meetings? Will that be part of something that's identified soon?
Yes, I think that's probably
Because
one of
it's
the
a pretty
first
quick
things
time frame. Great.
do after this meeting is to get these all on the calendar.
First thing can be the October meeting.
Okay.
Which is tomorrow.
And as far out as you can go with those would be great, probably for everyone.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Is there going to be an opportunity to talk to any of the other winners from the DRI competition? Like when I think of Geneva and what they're going through, and this is a really exciting time for them, and kind of a lessons learned, and is there any synergy between the other fellow communities?
I expect that we could work that out. Barbara, Andy, is this something that you've been contemplating at some point together?
It hasn't come up, but it would be easy to do. The consulting team is working in at least one other.
We're working in Jamestown and we're going to be working in New York City also.
Barbara and I are also working in Glens Falls, so we can share, and we've already shared with the consultant some of the stuff that's going on there. So that would be easy to do.
And then we also, some of us work in other communities like Oneonta and Glens Falls on an ongoing basis, so there's an opportunity just to learn from what they're doing, and we're happy to share it.
I'd just like to add, I'm very pleased that the full group that's represented from the experience, not one person is going to give us the area of expertise to move our region forward. And we really have quite a comprehensive group here. I'm very excited to tap into your knowledge, but also the folks here locally. I know that there has been a concern about access, points of access to be a participant in the process. You know, we have a meeting today, it's at 1 o'clock. Young professionals can't, get out, various things like that. So I would just put out there early on is harness the social media, as we talk about, but more of that face-to-face opportunity, I think, is really going to build the confidence within our regional community that this is something that we can all be a participant in. It comes down to where people, yes, the buck stops here with certain people, there's so many chefs in the kitchen type of thing, but I really think people across the board, from Peru to Beekmantown to Schuyler Falls to the town of Plattsburgh, city of Plattsburgh, everyone is very pleased that the city got the $10 million, and we want to support it the best to our ability. So.
And as we're setting the future meeting dates and times, we'll think carefully about how do we set those so that the most possible participation can take place.
And Kate, as a point of clarification, I think there are some people in the community that think that the $10 million has to be used in the Durkee Street parking lot. But what's been reported today is that actually is not the case.
Correct.
And it just would be reminding everybody that is open for discussion and full debate at this stage.
And that's why there's a process that has been set up, is what are the key strategies that are going to have the biggest impact on downtown Plattsburgh? What projects can be in support of those? What is the viability and way to get those individual projects done? And again, it's not just about $10 million is going to this one thing. It's about how can you use those resources as leverage for as many different funding sources as you can. So I'd say this is a much wider conversation.
Thank you.
Be prepared for a lot of great comments, because I think there's a pent-up demand for this process. And it's not only the people who live here, it's people who visit. The city and the town of Plattsburgh are where most of the county come to gain a lot of services. There's going to be a lot of ideas from the larger community on how we should spend this money and what needs to happen in downtown Plattsburgh. Whether it is broader surveys and not just relying on the meetings that we're going to have at a physical location, there's going to be a lot of great ideas that will help us as we sift through some of the things that we want to accomplish.
I just kind of to add to what Rodney just said, I mean, the other statistic I should put up is that 2/3 of our visitors come from out of state. Many of them come from out of country. And getting some feedback from folks who are coming here, particularly from Quebec, would be very valuable.
Christy.
I was just thinking that I was going to kind of echo what the mayor just said, but also say, remember when we're in this whole planning process and what we're thinking about, because we have such a Quebec, Montreal tourism population, that the way they interact with our downtown may be a little different, and what they're looking for is a little bit skewed or different, or the cultures say, they utilize our area in a different way, and to make sure we're aware of that and we keep that in the forefront of our conversations as well.
That'd be great, and I'm hoping that we can partner in making sure that we get access to those.
Oh,
who
don't you
are-
worry, I'm here to after that, not a problem.
Are there general questions from the committee? Should we continue with committee comments first, then we'll open it up to public comment at the tail end?
Really, we haven't,
I'll come to another.
no, we haven't really had a discussion. I mean, we do have public comment period scheduled at the end of the meeting. I think that's probably best to stay within that structure at this point.
The last thing that I would throw out there as a new supervisor that I'm reminded on a regular basis is government works at glacial speed, right? And I think that's been the long-term frustration of things. The way that this is rolling out is very rapid, which is both exciting and challenging at the same time. So as I am reminded on a daily basis, my wife and I don't agree 100% of the time. You know, our community is not always going to agree on the plans and the process and the procedures, and to stay positive. You know, this is a really exciting thing, and you know, I think there's a tendency when you don't see exactly what you want or what you envision to lean towards the negativity or the misunderstanding. Ask for clarification. You know, I'm already asked a number of things over cantaloupes at Hannaford's. I'm sure I'll be happy to talk to the DRI at Hannaford's as well now.
Any other questions on process or comments on engagement as Margaret described so far?
Kate, just one thing, and that is how to involve the students, because more than half of the students live off campus in the community, and then the other half are on campus, and they have limited interaction with the community, and there's got to be more involvement with them. So how we can involve that into the process is something that's up for discussion, I think.
We'd love to talk to you about that. Yeah. I mean, through the combination of social media and then how and where you're holding your public meetings has a big impact on that too. But we also know that just broadcasting a public meeting is not necessarily going to get a lot of student involvement or attendance.
Especially in the morning.
Have to be creative.
Especially in the morning.
Yeah, 8 o'clock.
Right.
Their Senate meetings begin at 10:30 at night. And go till around 2, so if we want to have a meeting.
Your committee will not be there.
As long as you're all committed to be out until 2 in the meeting, I'm working
For 10 years.
We have a large social
Yeah.
clubs. We had a great success in Troy, holding meetings at the Polish American Club where draft beers were 25 cents and the bar was in the front. You had to walk through it. To get to the meeting hall.
Oh, really?
Anything like that?
No, but we should have. We should have. We should.
Maybe that's our first objective.
Yeah.
I've learned how to roll. You got it. And we can come back if there are other questions. I'm sure there's more questions that are going to arise on this. But let's start with sort of the key strategies that were identified in the DRI application. And just recapping, Connor already addressed these. But the need to develop underutilized, centrally located parcels in the city center, supporting cultural assets and establishing the downtown arts corridor, activating the waterfront and creating linkages between downtown and waterfront recreation opportunities. And part of that is celebrating the natural resources that Plattsburgh really has access to. Strengthening the existing manufacturing and transportation cluster. There was a discussion of incubators, there was discussion of makerspace within the application. And protecting and raising awareness of the city's historic assets. Are there other key strategies that maybe didn't make it to the application that we should be contemplating that you want to make sure get out on the table, or approaches here that you really want to underscore the importance of?
Jeremiah's turned us all on to reading Strong Towns lately, and what was out today was talking about that a city rises and falls on its school system. And we've got higher ed represented here, which is great, but we ought to see, you know, we've got our middle school, which is right in the heart of all of this, but really engaging, so supporting cultural assets, if we just put educational assets, and I'm pretty sure that's in our LRAP vision statement. But I think that's really core when we think about the whole continuum, making sure that, you know, we've got a great new superintendent who's got 3 kids in the school district, and he'd be fabulous to have part of this conversation. And I think that would be really great. And also maybe, we had also talked about JCEO. We've got JCEO and a fabulous housing authority here, making sure that we're engaging what's not making it in here and what is in the vision statement is, and we worked really hard on crafting that language, but we were talking about holistic engagement.
Okay.
And getting everybody in there. And it's hard to put in a bullet point, and I'm sure it's in there somewhere, but I know it's in the vision
Let's
statement
make sure
because
it's
we spent a
always
lot
there
of
going
time on that.
And since I was brought up and Strong Towns was brought up, I would say to add or keep in mind when we're talking about underused spaces, I mean, not just the 2 parking lots that were mentioned, but all the vacant retail storefronts and, you know, apartments above a lot of those vacant storefronts that need a lot of work, rather than spending a lot of money on new construction investment, which doesn't always pencil out, especially in a community like this. There's so much potential unused and underused space to keep in mind with that strategy.
Are the strategies that you've talked about for activating that space, has it been primarily about how do you make it more occupiable? Has it been about how you know, strengthen the identity of the downtown to attract more people who might want to live there and occupy it? Are all of those sort of on the table?
I mean, I would say I don't know that much about what other people have talked about for really tackling the issue of the vacancy issue, but I would say, you know, especially the Downtown Association and all the local businesses getting together to figure out like a more consolidated retail strategy. Like the incubator strategy is key, because one of the barriers I see operating a business downtown is that retail rents in those vacant storefronts are so high that it's kind of a barrier to entry in a risky market.
Yep.
So if you have strategies in place that, and I saw that HRNA had the strategy in Staten Island, like a
competition,
a storefront competition, things like that, I think have a lot of potential up here. Yep.
Well, the other issue to kind of segue off that is, I think one of the problems with our downtown is that while we have residential housing down there, the majority of the folks don't have a lot of disposable income. So one of the ideas that's been raised is to incorporate some residential housing that would be new housing that perhaps would be marketable to a different type of tenant, and get more people living downtown, so that they not only live there, they will also shop there.
This is one that gets me very excited. So
Hold on a minute.
Sorry. I did very well so far.
I didn't even know you were over there.
It's the quietest he's ever been.
Aaron will make sure you have your train.
First of all, Mr. Benner is a former student of mine, just so you know.
I love you, Mr. Benner.
He was involved in Model UN, which is part of the problem. But anyway, it's very good to solve world problems. I'd just be interested in the employment component of this too. As we go through each one of these, I get invited to an awful lot of reunions for the high school students, and very few of the people who come back are from here. And so, from my point of view, whatever we can do to build that in and talk about that issue of the revitalization is fine, but what is the job component in each one of those? I'd like to see that done too.
I think we need to do a better job in celebrating the international influence that we have in our community. Not only the Canadian influence, but SUNY Plattsburgh has one of the highest populations of international students of any SUNY campus. You have a Tibetan restaurant downtown. I mean, you know, when people think North Country, they don't necessarily think of sometimes those types of restaurants. What's the influence? Also, what are the multicultural, what are the multi-generational influences that may be often overlooked in these subcategories? I just think we need to do a better job at capturing that.
I think it's an interesting point. It also comes back to your point about the schools. It also comes back to how are you getting people living downtown, which is how do you provide a community that supports and sustains individuals and families through the different stages of their life. And they're all going to interact with the downtown in different ways at different times of day, depending on where they are. But those are all different participants in the community and important members and contributors to downtown. We can think about what we're offering at every stage. That's important.
I would also echo Neil's comment on the opportunity to provide some housing stock that we haven't had in our downtown before, and I think that is critical to making a lot of other pieces come together, too.
I want to point out the natural resource and celebrating it and knowing that there's a river in our downtown that has a bunch of buildings and it's back, and kind of with the idea of reorienting so that people can use that waterfront. It's unique to our downtown. You don't go to many downtowns and see a river where potentially there could be paddling happening, you know? So I think it's really important. And then speaking to Neil and what Neil and Victoria just said, with a new type of residential housing with new income and things like that, they're going to be looking for more amenities. And so make sure we know that that's there, so it's not a win. There's lots of ways you can recreate in the downtown.
Is it both like mixing income of housing, so price points, but also types, so loft, apartment,
right,
yes. Condo?
Yes. There's not a lot of variety of different types of pieces now, and I think particularly we want to have folks who are, increase that housing stock of people who are here 24 hours a day, so that it provides the different opportunities economically. And some of that would be higher rent facilities, people with more disposable income.
Just a suggestion, this region has been very successful in the competition over the last 5 or 6 years, hundreds of millions of dollars. Now the region extends all the way to Watertown, but that the RDDC has a strategic plan. Sue Matten helped to write it. If we could keep an eye on the goals and objectives of that plan so that we can take advantage of the things that make sense for us in the downtown revitalization initiative.
And that's something that we'll certainly be doing in this next stage of work. I mean, it's really sort of your launching point. If this is the larger regional economic strategy, how does Plattsburgh's future tie into that and
And Kate, what preliminary thoughts do you have regarding additional funding? Because and to go back to Rodney's point, there's going to be a lot of really, really good ideas. There's a lot of opportunity. $10 million could be spent on one corner of that parking lot like that. So what do you think, what are your thoughts on that? Maybe I'm jumping too far ahead.
You're not jumping too far ahead. I think that's exactly the right question to ask. Part of the reason there's that laundry list of state partners here is that there are a variety of different state programs that can provide funding. And so we want to make sure is that as we're identifying potential projects, which kinds of programs could those also be eligible for, that the $10 million might encourage a match from. But it's also, and one of the things I think that we will work to understand with the state as we go through this, how can this attract private investment? So can this be a gap filler somewhere along the way? I think there are going to be limitations to how the public funding can actually be deployed in terms of advancing the private property, but we're trying to sort all of that out. So as you said, $10 million it's not going to build you a whole building, it's not going to complete an entire project many times, but it's the seed that ends up attracting matching funds or other forms of investment.
So has your group been involved with public-private partnerships where there's been a grant similar to the one that we're getting and say a private developer, and how to mesh those two together?
We do a lot of work with private projects where you do have public funding that is a gap filler that can sort of fill the hole or attract other investment. I think we have to understand what the specific rules are around how the DRI funds can be deployed. That may or may not be the way that this funding tool can be used. But if we can, through this process, also identify where are those gaps to get projects done, and then it also positions you to open up the conversation more broadly and say, well, maybe DRI is not the right funding source for that, but are there other state, federal sources that can help fill gaps to get projects done?
It's also important to think about how do we activate IDA, LEC, other partners. You can use university, you can partner nonprofits, you can partner, and think about, are there critical projects that are going to help you reach a tipping point where you're not going to need public investment to get a private sector partner to do what it is you think we should do? So I think really thinking about that, how do you build, what would build momentum? And some of the other communities that were designated they've done that, and so there's good opportunity for conversation around those strategies with those kind of actors.
Thank you.
One of the things that would be really helpful maybe from the get-go when we talk about how to spread this money as far as possible, and this is the grant writer and me, like, okay, if it gets into your report, then we can cite it and we can talk about it. But one of the really fascinating parts about downtown is it is this hub between all these amazing resources, and we've got this corridor that goes from the beach to Wilcox Dock, down to Dock Street to the marina, to the Saranac Bridge that we've got this wicked cool project going on, down to our museum campus. And it's all waterfront, and it's all these cool individual projects with downtown as the hub. And how do we keep talking about this corridor? So maybe it's not going to land DRI money, but again, it could get parks money, or it could get ESD money down the road. But the more we can talk about this is the hub for this project and the catalyst for all these other cool separate projects that have really, the beach is this phenomenal opportunity that we've done a lot of work on. But how do we share the resources and create this as a catalytic hub? That's my soapbox.
But I think your terminology is important. And the catalytic investments that you're making here that are either going to draw additional investment elsewhere or make additional public investment no longer necessary because it's really shifted the direction of the market is the goal.
So have the rules been laid out? Is there guidelines already for how the disbursements and project rules and everything, is it finalized? Because I've always heard that we don't know yet, and I just didn't know if they've been finalized.
I don't believe they have been finalized. They've not been finalized.
I keep going, what are the guidelines? What are the guidelines? I've written so many grants, but there's, nobody knows. So I didn't know how far we were from
on the one hand, you want to know exactly what that's going to look like. On the other hand, to the point that what you're identifying is a series of projects that are going to achieve the growth that you want to pursue. Only one portion of which is actually going to be DRI funded at the end of the day. There's a lot that you can do in parallel with that.
Absolutely. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the application got us here to the point where we are today. It sounds like moving forward, we can come up with ideas that maybe weren't even contemplated in the application that could get funded. And how long a time period do we have to expend the funds?
I don't think it has been narrowly defined. I imagine that they're going to want to see projects that are going to define a specific time frame for. So if you're going to say this isn't going to happen for 5 to 10 years, that's probably not going to cut it. But it's not that you need to be ready to expend the entire amount in the next 6 months.
To some degree, I think the state also wanted to see who was designated. Because based on those communities, there might be better or worse choices for what is allowed. So now that that's known, I would think we'd know a little bit more.
So I'm going to walk through next steps, and then we can open it up for public comment. Between now and beginning and end of October, but working very closely as early as next week with Paul to identify what these dates are, we're going to be refining our project scope to make sure that we are hitting the key points that you have identified here and as were identified in the application, and narrowing in on specific dates both for future committee meetings and for engagement events. And part of that is they're going to be formalizing the community engagement strategy, so we'll have a few conversations with the chairs and with Paul between now and then too. And certainly with respect to the October events, that we understand exactly how that's going to lay out. And the consulting team will be working on the existing conditions analysis, which frankly, there's been a lot of work that's also already been done on that. A lot of that is, okay, do we understand where we are, that we can advance the conversation together about what the core strategies are that we want to support, and then get very quickly into what are the projects that are going to achieve those strategies. And that will be the review and the discussion for our next meeting. Anything else before we open it up for public discussion? Okay then.
Aaron, you're up.
That's your cue, right? That's your cue. No, I just, our family, I would try and do this without getting emotional, just in September.
He's a crier.
Aaron, would you mind stepping a little closer to the microphone?
Can you actually get at the podium so the camera can see you, please?
That way the camera, we'll have both your voice and your picture in the recording.
Aaron, can you put that gooseneck up on there, please?
That one right there.
Thank you.
Say, I can project.
We won't need it for him.
Hi. First of all, Mr. McManus, I did not have the nomination to speak there. I am sorry.
I remember the classroom situation. It's not an issue. Just keep going.
Thank you, sir. Our family just recently, September 1st, moved downtown, and it has been a long road to get there, a lot of hard work, saving. I love this place, like you folks don't even know, some of these folks know, like you don't even know. It's 5 years ago I was in a fire, I'll tell you the story, when we have those beers at all Ridley's or wherever we're going. But it really gave me the gift of life, and that's perspective. And we live in an amazing place, we have amazing people here. And I just really do feel one of the keys, and why I got so excited and spoke out of turn, and I apologize, is my father and mother have always brought me up to do your best to lead by example. And when we made this investment and moved downtown, I'm still a little nervous for doing it, but I want to live by example and live downtown and have my 10-year-old, who's been homeschooled for 2 years, go back to school, which happened this year. It's been amazing. He has 2 friends already, which I can't. Jeez. They know I do this. I can't tell you what that means to me. He and I have a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences. I always joke, he's smarter than me. He's going to be taller than me and better looking than me. But he wouldn't be caught dead doing this. And that's okay. But the moral of the story is, if we can get families to move downtown, and the amount of times that I've eaten downtown, and the amount of times that I want to go to the co-op and shop and live and work and play and go to the Strand Center, that's where reality is. That's where we turn the tide. And it takes all sorts to come together. But I just want to make sure that I speak my voice at the right time and back what everyone's saying is, if we can get this downtown and developed in a way where people can live down there, I know the rest will come together. So thank you so much for coming here. You need anything, we're at the train station. You cannot miss it. Come up there. I will sit down with you anytime and cry, and we can have a beer and do whatever you want. #believe. I love you guys. Thank you.
Would anyone else care to address us?
After that.
Who dares? That's right.
Yeah, that is indeed a tough act to follow. Some of you know me, Dan Mills. I'm an assistant professor of environmental planning. This is my start of my second year in Plattsburgh. Very excited to move here. And one of the things that drew me to Plattsburgh was the downtown, the opportunity to engage in all of the planning that was happening. I have, I guess you call them 3 suggestions or words of advice. The first is you've got a very short time span, and the threat there is process legitimacy. It could be very easy to get swept up in the current of how fast this needs to happen and lose sight of the fact that there are people whose lives are going to be impacted directly. Case in point. There's also the people who currently live in downtown, and I don't want to have to bring up the G word, but I'm sure the folks from the consulting firms are well aware of the current debates and arguments over the processes of gentrification that happen as a result of economic development. The second point that I will make is to think more broadly in terms of how you define the downtown. We've heard a lot of conversations about downtown as an economic hub and catalyst. I happen to see it being an environmental planner as a social ecological system. Now, I've heard some passing references to open space in the river as having some amenity value. I would suggest, and Kevin, I'm going to give a nod to Kevin Farrington's stormwater report from last year or 2 years ago. Is it 2 of the top 5 green infrastructure implementation sites are within the downtown area?
Thanks for putting me on the spot there.
I just looked it up. It's the Cordelia Street right-of-way and the Durkee Street parking lot were the 2nd and 5th highest scoring in terms of reducing stormwater impact in the Saranac River. So thinking about the socio-ecological system of downtown in terms of not just the amenity values it can provide, but also the ecosystem services it can provide. It'll improve the sustainability, it'll improve sort of people's understanding of how ecosystems function. And the third thing, as a faculty member, and there were 4 or 5 of us here, Kurt Gurvich actually left, is don't underestimate the students and what the students are going to be willing to do. I actually had 7 students of mine in this building yesterday afternoon working with Paul, looking over documents, poring over impact assessments from the Marina Street site, really interested and engaged. And every time I tell my students at the beginning of a semester that you're going to work for the city, their eyes go, really? Their eyes light up and they go, really? And they're going to listen to us? And I would say, yes. And I've been very impressed and very pleased by Paul and by Kevin at the amount and rate at which they're willing to accept students to come and talk and offer advice, and how open they are to the actual advice that they have to offer. There are ways, I would encourage the team to come talk to me, talk to a couple other folks that are working about how we can get access to students in more creative ways than well, let's just invite them. Because they might not show up if you just put the blanket invite out there. But if we get creative, we can probably definitely leverage their input and leverage their involvement. That's all I have. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to land on Dan's word, creative. I'm Julia Devine, and I'm coordinator for SUNY Plattsburgh's Center for Public Service, but I'm also co-director of Outside Art, Plattsburgh Public Art Project, and I come from a field of creative placemaking, which is a big movement across the country, which is using arts to redefine place and using arts as an economic driver. So when we talk about economic development, I'd like to see arts, just beyond the strand, as at the table with the planning and the engineering and the designing, and think about aesthetics. So when you go on your downtown tour, you're going to see some murals that our project has done. And thinking about, as Dan said, the creative ways to involve the students. In fact, Dan and I could help work with the community engagement on putting together some creative events or workshops to really involve the students, because yes, they are really hungry to be involved, and we also do have a lot of community engagement already happening on campus. So if we can make it more holistic, I'd love to work with you or be involved in any kind of creative ways to involve people. And the whole creative placemaking movement is about the holistic process, really inspired by Jane Jacobs, who I'm sure all of you know, and I know Amy and Jeremiah are big, Jane Jacobs followers in the movement. So thank you for being here. And yes, and I do want to echo what Michael Cashman said. there's a lot of input, and a lot of people have a lot of great ideas, but let's try to remain positive. We can be positive in a creative way, too. So, thanks.
Johnny.
Oh, Grace.
Beat you to it.
Yeah.
Well, howdy, friends. Nice to see everybody. It was nice that everybody introduced yourself. Now we know who everybody is and what you bring to the table. My name is John Seaton, and I've been redeveloping downtown since 1991. Before there was a Mayor's Cup, before there was Downtown Rising, before there was anything. And downtown is our heart and our soul. It's also our economic driver. And I understand everybody's heartfelt feelings, but in my mind, the priority for me in downtown, because of the fact that Plattsburgh has struggled and has always struggled in generating revenue. This is a big thing for me that I want to explore to its fullest. I think when you put housing in, I think history shows it's kind of it's not really it's a net gain. There's really not much there, but what can we think differently? A different paradigm in how we think. I want to challenge everybody about that. I think about Plattsburgh and when it was developed, and it was developed here for a reason. It was developed on the river. And you think about hydropower, and you think about what can we do to generate income for our coffers? Maybe it could be a creative boardwalk along the river with the new technologies of the water turbines. We have a municipal lighting company. Why can't we make the meter go the other way and put that in our coffers? I want people to think differently about Plattsburgh. In 1991, everybody thought I was crazy to go down to Skid Row and take the worst street in the county and make it the best street in the county. They thought I was crazy when City Court was in this room. And I didn't like the orange jumpsuits coming in and out of this room. I was the guy that moved City Court out of here. I redeveloped the Merkel building and took an old abandoned department store downtown and made office space. I was the guy who took the old Grand Union food store and turned it into high-end medical suites. And now CVPH is here, and it's a nice long relationship. I want to challenge everybody to think differently than how we've thought in the past and not squander another wonderful opportunity, because Plattsburgh has squandered opportunities. Years ago, the council, I think, made a mistake by putting the Crate Civic Center where it is. And I think history shows it was a mistake. I think history has shown that the development of the hotel next to the sewage treatment plant, where we got into litigation, we put $1 million parking lot that sits there underutilized. Let's not do that. Let's think differently. And I challenge you, I know that we had to dust off the Arve plan, but let's put that in the toilet and let's think differently what we can be. Let's set ourselves up for the shining star that we are in the Northeast and not just settle for mediocre. I'm bothered by the timeline. We got to rush. Please, don't rush. What's the rush? Plattsburgh's been here a long time. Let's make it. Let's get the best minds and figure out what can we do instead of throw crap on the wall to see if it sticks. I want us to stop and slow down and have meaningful dialogue with all the people. I've put a lot of heart and soul and blood and sweat and, yes, my own money. I think I deserve an opportunity to say what I wanted to say. It's unfortunate I didn't get on the committee, but I'm going to make myself available to everybody because I've been here a long time. I've been on 2 downtown commissions with Rodney. I was on the building inspector's office on the zoning board for 15 years. Small Business of the Year through the chamber because my business was downtown. Rotarian of the Year. And I live and breathe for Plattsburgh. And I promise you, I'm going to be watching And I'm not going to let this opportunity be squandered. I want to think differently. Let's look what the Scandinavian countries are doing. Let's look at some new technology out of Japan. There's windmills that look like trees. Let's put those downtown. Let's generate some money for the city coffers. That's really what we should be thinking about. Quality of life and all that, that's very, very good. But we need to generate income. And we're not going to do it by putting in housing. We learned that from taking on the base. We took on a lot of housing in the base, and now actually it's crushing us because of all the infrastructure problems. A lot of communities, what do? They put arenas in downtown. They hold sporting events. People go to the restaurants. They shop. Maybe let's have that conversation. Let's talk about that. But to jam down Arve's plan down our throat, we got to go, 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 go. Please, Plattsburgh, put on the brakes. Let's all talk. Let's think about this. And let's not squander another unbelievable opportunity. I love Plattsburgh. I love you guys. Let's be the best that we can be.
Well, I don't know if I want to follow that.
Go for it.
You got this.
Mine's a little softer. Yeah. I'm Sarah Rowden. I'm a kind of a substitute county legislator right now for a few reasons. But I was a county legislator for about 13 years, and I have lived here for so long that I always say that I've lived here BM and AM, before mall and after mall. And I got to tell you, before mall, downtown was jumping. After mall, downtown became bars, and there was nobody here. So it's very exciting to see this revitalization, and I think it'll work well. One of the things I had the opportunity to do as a county legislator was attend a nationwide convention on dealing with the development of healthy communities. And I came back knowing about complete streets. I mean, now it's common, we talk about it, but it was pretty new then. Complete streets and having a healthy community and having places that are walkable. And we don't just have places to put cars, but we have places that people can walk. And while I was on the legislature, I also had the opportunity to work with the tourism committee and be part of the destination plan development. And what I realized was, in doing both of these things, was that when we have healthy communities, we have communities that tourists want to come to. And we were talking about the same things at both of those committees. So I had the health department come and talk to the tourism people and exchange ideas. And one of the things I would like for you to know is that our community here, especially since the base left, and the base brought me here, but I think that was one of the best things to have happen to the Plattsburgh area, was to lose the Air Force Base. Sorry. Well, what it did was it forced the community to work together. And we knew we couldn't count on one thing. It had to become diversified. And you will find that groups of people and organizations and agencies work well together. We play well together. And there are a lot of communities where there is such territorialism between agencies that it's hard to get them to communicate. You will not find that here in Plattsburgh. We really do talk to each other, and even though we have differences of how we want to do things, I think we're very good at coming together for that final good plan. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Matt Drown. I own a small business here in town, and my big concern, and I know it's concern of a lot of the business owners, is that we don't, I guess, cordon off certain areas of the town with projects or things. If you look at the map, what is on the east side of the bridge? At 5 o'clock, it's a ghost town. And we want to be able, I hope that projects like this help bring not just this part of town, but the other side of town. You know, there's restaurants on that side, there's, you know, some other businesses. What is drawing people to the whole town? And, you know, we just hope, I know I've talked to a few business owners, you know, you close off, say, Durkee Street, those businesses get deliveries on Durkee Street? How are they going to get their deliveries? You know, how are the other businesses going to survive on Bridge Street or Dock Street and all those things? And we just hope as a community that it's not just uptown, downtown, but all of downtown. And you know, there's events in downtown that they do a great job with, and it brings people down here. And it's just hoping that this is a 7-day-a-week community. And I know Sam probably sees it on Sundays. This town is a ghost town. There's very few places open on Sunday, and I hope this type of project gets people downtown and can stay here, you know? Sandra and her crew does a great job putting events on Sundays and weekends, but no one's staying because there's nothing to stay for if everything's closed. You know, the percentage of businesses open on a Sunday here is very small. So I hope, as, you know, not just for my business, but all the businesses downtown, that, you know, we can promote it more than just Margaret Street, City Hall Place, Oak Street, because there is more to give. And, you know, living downtown, I lived downtown for a while, but I can't afford it. I'm a single guy, I have a business, I can't afford it. Higher end price points is not what the town needs. We need that $25,000 to $45,000 income. We need places for those type of people, you know, not low income housing, what people call it, or high condos. You need affordable living and other things to bring people downtown, and I think this is a good step, and I hope everyone here, I know business owners and small business association, we're trying, but it's a long road, and I hope that as consultants, you stop at all the small businesses and all the places in town and just say, hey, what do you see on a daily basis? You know, and I hope that the elections don't affect this as well. You know, we have an incumbent mayor that's running, we have someone running against him. Is that going to change if the government flips? You know, I hope that the plans stay no matter which government is in place. You know, and I hope that, you know, as business owners and things, you guys understand that too. You know, I see plenty of you downtown, so, you know, but that's all. So, thank you.
I'll make this quick because I know everybody's been here a long time. 2 years ago, my husband and I decided to invest in downtown because we believe in it. So far, we're very upside down. We just put approximately $14,000 in a 2-bedroom apartment that we are keeping at $780 a month rent. Anybody that does math in their head knows that the numbers just don't work. So I'd like to encourage the committee to keep in mind, as Jeremiah said, these older buildings require a lot of resuscitation in order to keep them safe, in order to keep them livable. We've taken 4 of the 5 units and made them livable. Before that, I would not have let my dog stay in them. So we're proud of what we've done, but the lift is not over. So that's one of my recommendations, is don't forget the other properties. I agree with John. If there's a way to find an investment that puts money in the coffers, look at Alaska. I mean, I have friends that live up there. They get paid money a lot of years because they make more money than it costs to live. And the third item is, if there's a way to build structures or something where we can celebrate the other 9 months of the year. Quebec City does it. They celebrate it. Lake Placid does it. They celebrate it. Our winters here are long, and we need to keep that in mind. And that's it. Thank you.
You know who I am, but David Merkel. I've lived here my whole life, did go away to school, came back. I like it here. My family has a long history here. Personally, I've been invested here for over 40 years in downtown. Kind of been begging to be a part of this process. I think that part of this has happened in vacuum. I'd like to see more proactivity on this body's part to get the information out. One day notice in the Press Republican doesn't do it. I was here late because I had a previous engagement, but I want to be positive. I think it's a great thing. I like to see all the people at the table. I think that there's some good minds here. My daughter's in the consulting field. I know what you guys go through. I love that word, deliverables. She does that till 2 in the morning sometimes. But I wish you would gather email list of people, so the people that are here, the sign up was the perfect time to do it, except there's no space to put an email. Because we're obviously here, we're interested, so please don't ignore us. Thanks.
Hi, hello, my name is Beverly Eichenlaub. I'm with Premises Architecture. We have a small practice that's based in downtown Plattsburgh, right on Durkee Street. And we chose to locate our business here about a year ago, just about a year we've been in business here. And one of the reasons that we wanted to come to Plattsburgh, we've actually been in the region for about 20 years, but we decided to move our business to downtown Plattsburgh because we can see the amazing assets that are here, just in terms of its geography, the lake, the mountains, its location, its proximity to other things, and the amazing culture that's here that's starting to flourish with some of the grassroots activities. And I think that this particular town has a tremendous potential to be a model for other communities. I think, in fact, a global model is possible, and I'd urge you to think very broadly and very highly of this place and what it has to offer. I think it's really a tremendous opportunity, and I'm very excited that everything is moving forward. So, thank you.
Hello, I'm not too new of a face either. Trevor Cole with the Town of Plattsburgh. I'm the senior planner there. And first, congratulations, Mayor, and this committee. I think this is great, and I kind of want to keep that positive spin on it. And also offer, as a player in the Uptown, my office is available too. Anything we can do to help and, help in this process. Any institutional knowledge we might have, anything we can add to the process. Clues, we've been through a few plans too, and we look at each other's plans constantly, and I think we get a lot of cues from them. The other thing I want to emphasize is our inextricable nature and what I call, it's our special relationship. I think there's nothing good that can happen downtown that would be bad for uptown, vice versa. And I just kind of want to offer, a pledge that in all my dealings, in my work, I'm going to continue to emphasize that overall this is a good thing, and keep adding positive suggestions, even if I don't like something, or I think I hear things that other people don't like. I will constantly try to divert that to positive suggestions. That way this keeps moving forward.
Okay, there's going to be like 6 lists around the room. If you would please write your email down. My apologies. We will spread them out with you.
My name is Keith Herklow. I represent the history organizations, and I'll be so bold as to say that I'm the only one that showed up, and I need to make sure that their interests are kept alive. It is more than one day a year. We had a destination master plan that we spent a lot of money on, and the one thing that came out of that was you have this significant asset and you're doing nothing with it. You have to turn that into something that you can use. We've talked about it. Make it live. Make it 24 hours a day. Make it 365 days a year. What's wrong with Christmas in the village of Plattsburgh? Just like it was in 1850 or 1812 or 1912. There's nothing wrong with that. It's an economic development tool. And let me tell you a minor story. Years ago, when I first came back to Plattsburgh and started to work for the city of Plattsburgh, I actually took a vacation, went to Pennsylvania, and I went to a little place in the middle of nowhere. And the name escapes me. I can't remember. It was something like Hopewell Village. And it's in the middle of nowhere. It's in farmland in Pennsylvania. You have to drive for an hour from anywhere to get to be there. And then it's pouring rain. And we got there, and there's lots of little shops, lots of brick walkways, lots of vendors. They're all inside. There's no one around. But then an hour later, buses pull up. Lots of buses. They pulled into a field which was grass. The people got out, they were soaking wet. They walked from place to place to place to place with their credit cards. They came back to those buses hours later after eating in the taverns, after having beverages because they didn't have to drive, and buying lots of things that they wouldn't ordinarily possibly have bought at all. And they dragged those bags back to the buses, soaking wet, with smiles on their faces and empty pockets and lots of credit card receipts. There's a lesson there, and we're not capitalizing on it. We have so much history here under our nose, and we have yet to capitalize on it. Don't forget the history, people. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lori Saunders. I'm not a resident of the city. I am not a businessman, realtor, arts community member, nothing. Here's what I am. I am your city user. I have a disposable income. Like me now? I look at this plan, and even though I haven't been a resident of the city, if you look out that window at 22 Cornelia Street, my great-grandmother owned that property and sat in the bay window with me watching. So I'm familiar. I am excited to see ideas, and not just the city of Plattsburgh's ideas. My gosh, the town, the college, the business people, the arts people. I'm shaking, I'm so excited. I travel a lot, and I will be honest, as a user with a grandchild, I don't come to your city with her. It's not user-friendly. I have to walk uphill almost everywhere. Just a thought for the developers. Transportation from Dock Street to there. I can drive my car. It's not green. I may or may not get a parking spot. A thought. I'm not going to give you the answers. You need to think of it. I'm your user. I have disposable income. I would like to spend it in the city rather than the ferry in Vermont. So please, as they've said in the historical community, grab my interest. Make it colorful. I see Durkee Street as a core because I go down there as a grandma with my 5-year-old granddaughter. We go to a water park, she splashes around, now I'm thinking lunch. Restaurant. Well, now I'm thinking dessert. Ice cream. Walking along the street. Oh, isn't that dress cute? You've gotten $100 out of me without even thinking. So please, please, remember not just the college students, although admirable, a resource underutilized. Don't forget people like me. I can bring you something. So I just had to say it as a user because we've heard the businessmen, the arts community, we've heard everybody. I'm just a user. You babysit? I used to. But my kindergarten, my 5-year-old is now in kindergarten, so.
I got a 7-year-old who can go downtown with you.
So thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, I think, thank you very much for all of those comments. They're all very valuable. The committee will obviously incorporate all of those thoughts in their deliberations. And I think we've accomplished our task for today, which is really to kind of kick things off, get a chance to meet everyone. The consultants are going to take a tour of some of downtown from Turkey Street to the waterfront and all places in between, really looking at assets that are here, corridors that could be developed, relationships that can happen. And we certainly invite anyone who wants to accompany them to do so. If there's no other comments from the committee, we can actually get about that portion of the business. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to add?
Thank you, Mayor.
Then thank you all very much. What a great kickoff. Appreciate it.